Hello everyone and welcome to another casual review. Today I'm talking about Pokémon Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team DX. Now this is kind of a rare occasion where I've already done a casual review on a very similar game, because this game is a remake of a Game Boy Advance game and a DS game, the Pokémon Mystery Dungeon Red and Blue. So I already did a casual review on the Pokémon Mystery Dungeon Red version. Now this remaster is for the Nintendo Switch and it seems to have combined both of the versions. So I went back and listened to my casual review of the Pokémon Mystery Dungeon Red Rescue Team. It was so long ago, it was like more than a year ago at this point, and I just wanted to get an idea of what I thought of the game previous to this, and to kind of remember some of the changes that they might have added with this new remastered revision. Because it was a while ago and I've played a ton of games since, so I'm going to resist on trashing on my previous casual review, and mostly just focus on the topics that I brought up during that casual review. So one of my complaints about the Red Rescue Team is that the tutorial wasn't that great and I had to figure out a lot of the stuff on my own. Now I feel like this remastered version did a really good job explaining how to play the game and how certain mechanics work. They even have this dojo where they can train you on how to do certain maneuvers step by step and reward you in doing these tutorials if you want. Now this is completely optional, which I really appreciate because I do kind of already know how to play the game, but if you need a refresher, or if you're a beginner to the mystery dungeon genre, maybe it would be good to go through these dojo lessons and learn how to play the game. Little pop-ups would come up and give you little tips when you are first playing through the game, but they don't give it to you all at once. They kind of pepper it in as you are playing through it, which is really nice. For the most part, this remaster is pretty much like a one-to-one with the original versions of this game. The mechanics are pretty similar. As far as like the core gameplay and the story goes, they are very similar. Visually, it got an uplift. Now, instead of this 16-bit aesthetic that the original versions had, it has a really cool art style in this game where it kind of looks like a colored pencil, maybe like a little bit of watercolor. It looks like a children's storybook, which is a pretty cool effect for the Pokemon series. Now, it's not jaw-dropping or anything like that, but I do think that it is a very fitting and cute art style for this kind of game, because this game focuses on more of like the first versions of the Pokemon evolution lines, so it kind of has a more cutesy, approachable look to it. They added some unique animations as far as like the story goes. Whenever you encounter a powerful boss, they will add like different effects from what I remember from the original version. And of course, there's a lot more buttons available to be mapped to moving mechanics and different inputs like that. So it's a lot easier to remember how to control the game compared to the simpler layout of the Game Boy Advance. So I'm just going to assume that you didn't watch that older casual review because it was so long ago at this point. So I will just kind of explain it to you like you are going into this game fresh. And the plot of it is basically you yourself, a human, woke up as a Pokemon for some unknown region and you have no memory of your history. You befriend another Pokemon and you decide to start up a rescue team. Now, rescue teams are tasked with helping out the local Pokemon with any problems that they need, or if they are lost, you go find them and rescue them, obviously. So the Pokemon talk to each other in English or Pokemonese or whatever. They have this whole town, this civilization, and they will post these quests, these missions, if you will, on a bulletin board, and your rescue team is tasked with accepting those missions and going out and doing them in these dungeons. As you fulfill these missions and as you play through the main story campaign, your rescue team will level up in rank and be able to handle tougher and tougher rescue missions. And as the plot goes along, you uncover more about your past and more about the lore of this Pokemon world. And the narrative for this story is a lot more in-depth than most Pokemon games, I'll say. I really like the story here, and I like having the perspective of a Pokemon civilization rather than a human civilization. So right off the bat, at the beginning of the game, you take this little personality quiz, which will ask you questions about yourself, what you would do in certain scenarios, and then it will give you a recommended Pokemon Pokemon. So the time that I played the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Red Rescue Team version, I was given a Mudkip, and then you are able to choose your partner Pokemon, and I chose to have the partner Pokemon be a Cyndaquil. In this game, I was assigned a Charmander, and I was able to change whatever starter Pokemon I wanted to be. You weren't stuck with whatever you were assigned, but I just decided to stick with Charmander because Charmander's awesome. And when I was choosing my partner Pokemon, I chose Machop because I am quite fond of Machamp. He's one of my favorite first generation Pokemon. And so these two Pokemon in particular are going to have most of the narrative and plot structure, but you are able to recruit Pokemon along the way. And I found that this game gives you a lot more opportunities to recruit these wild Pokemon into your team compared to when I was playing the Game Boy Advance version of this game. They seem to be a lot more stingy when Pokemon would decide to join you. The main way to get Pokemon to join your team is by defeating them in battle, and then there is a very small chance that they will decide to join you. Now, they seem to have a lot more opportunities in this version for them to join you. One, yes, you can defeat them in battle and have them join you. The second way is by finding a hungry Pokemon in a dungeon and feeding them an apple. The third way is by completing missions, and then the Pokemon that posted the mission may be tempted to join your rescue team. So right off the bat, it seemed like it happened a lot more. I was recruiting a lot more Pokemon into my team. Now, I want to talk about qualities because this is new to this Switch version of Mystery Dungeon, where certain Pokemon are assigned a rare quality, and these are passive effects different than the normal passive effects that each Pokemon had, because these affect your whole team. And early in the game, my Charmander was given the rare quality that he has a higher chance of recruiting Pokemon after he beats them. So it seemed to trigger this effect a lot more often. Now, in the original version of this game, you are able to take one extra Pokemon with you when you start a dungeon, and you are able to recruit one Pokemon in the wild during each dungeon run. In this game, you can bring one extra Pokemon with you when you start the dungeon, and you can recruit 5 Pokemon on your run, which I really enjoyed because this effect would trigger so much. It seemed to happen, so it wasn't unusual for me to be walking around in especially some of these larger dungeons with 8 Pokemon, and it was just awesome just having this parade of Pokemon helping me fight, and we would all gang up on these random Pokemon and absolutely destroy them. This was especially helpful during boss encounters. Now, at the end of the dungeon, you can decide to keep these Pokemon that you picked up along the way and use them in future dungeon runs. However, you need to have the corresponding camp for these Pokemon to stay at when you aren't using them, and this is unlocked by using the Wigglytuff in the town. It costs a ton of money, and I spent the majority of my money unlocking these additional camps for potential Pokemon to stay at. There's nothing more frustrating than finding a really cool rare Pokemon along your dungeon run and them not being able to stay in a camp because I don't have it unlocked and I don't have enough money to unlock the corresponding camp, and I just lose them forever. So anytime I possibly could unlock a new camp, that's what I would spend my money on. I guess now I'll kind of go into the core gameplay of this game. It's an isometric view with a grid-based movement, and every time you make a move, your teammates will also make a move, and the enemy Pokemon on the floor will make a move. And you are progressing through this dungeon, climbing these different floors. And at the beginning of the game, a dungeon can be around 10 floors. By the end of the game, I think the most floors was 34 floors. And every time you enter in a new floor, you enter this randomly generated pathway of hallways and rooms. Each Pokemon is given 4 abilities, and they do varying effects. I tended to assign my Pokemon abilities that had a far-reaching effect. One of my favorite moves that Charmander started out with was Flame Burst, and it could shoot 4 tiles away and did a AoE burst with enemies that were around them. One of the other Pokemon aside from Machop that I would carry around with me quite a lot on dungeon runs would be an Execute this time around, and he had a couple of far-reaching moves. One of the more notable ones here would be Outburst, which damaged all the enemies in the room, which was really nice, especially if the room was really big. I could totally destroy an enemy before it even got near me. Now, in the original game, in the Game Boy Advance version of this game, you have a basic attack that all Pokemon can use, and this does not consume PP because you are not using any of your abilities. they seem to have taken this ability out, and so you have to use one of your 4 abilities, which does consume PP, so you have to be careful to carry around a lot of elixirs to refill this PP so you can keep using your strong moves. Don't worry though, they give you plenty of elixirs while you are playing through this game, and you can really stockpile a lot in the bank. There are 2 meters that you kind of have to keep track of when you're playing through this game. One obviously being your HP, which can be depleted if an enemy attacks you enough, and the other being your hunger. So every time you make an action, your character's hunger meter will slowly deplete, and you'll have to eat an item in order to refill that. Now, this wasn't really a big deal until the end game, where you play through the dungeons with like 34 floors. Then you would have to carry around a lot of apples. Here's one thing that I noticed, however. You are able to switch which of your Pokemon you're playing through, at least the 3 that you bring with you on the run, not any that you recruit along the way of your dungeon run, but the 3 that you bring along initially. You can switch between them on the fly. So your 2 Pokemon that aren't being controlled by you directly, their appetite does not deplete as time goes on. So you're able to switch between the 3, which prolongs you needing to eat an apple even longer. Now, this was one of my major complaints when I was playing through the Game Boy Advance version of this game. I couldn't even figure out how to switch playing through a different Pokemon until like the very end of the game, when I found out that that actually was possible. In this game, it is just with the plus button, you can switch between all 3 no problem, which kind of kept things fresh, so I didn't have to just constantly play as Charmander the whole time. Now, while I did tend to stick with my Charmander, Machop, and Execute, I was able to switch out my Pokemon when I go on different mystery dungeons, and I know what you're thinking, well, what's the point? You kind of seem shoehorned into using 3 specific Pokemon, but the good thing is your Pokemon in your camps also acquire XP, even if they are just sitting in the camps and not being used at the time. My highest level Pokemon was actually the first one that I recruited, which I think was a Weedle, and he ended up being like level 40 at the end, even a higher level than the 3 Pokemon that I was using. So you are able to experiment a lot. However, I do feel like you are persuaded to use your main Pokemon and your partner Pokemon because they are the ones that are mainly being used as far as the narrative of the game. So really you are persuaded to switch out that one last third Pokemon if you do want to mix things up. And one of my main complaints when I was playing the Game Boy Advance version of this game is it doesn't give you a lot of variety in terms of moves and TMs. In this game, I felt like you had a lot more TMs available to you to buy and find in the wild. Of course, I was spending most of my money unlocking the Pokemon camp, so I wouldn't lose out on wild Pokemon that I recruited, but it does have that option. It is a good podcast game, something that you can play while listening or watching something in the background. The gameplay itself is fairly straightforward and actually pretty easy. Now, it does play similar to Pokemon Arceus in that you do a ton of damage to wild Pokemon, but wild Pokemon can do a ton of damage to you. So if they are super effective against you, then it could potentially take maybe 2 hits for them to make your own teammate faint. This especially happened when you have a huge parade of recruited Pokemon and one of these enemy Pokemon sneak up behind you. Because you aren't able to directly take control of the Pokemon that you recently recruited, they can die pretty easily. Fortunately for us though, revive seeds are pretty easy to come across, and even if they are recently recruited, you are able to use these revived seeds on them. This wasn't always the case in the Game Boy Advance version. If they weren't directly in your party, they would faint and you would lose the ability to use them in future runs. One of my main complaints in the Game Boy Advance version was it felt really clunky and hard to maneuver, and whenever I would try to trade places with the enemy Pokemon, they would have to teleport somewhere randomly on the floor. That is not the case in this game. I felt like it was a lot more streamlined, and instead of having to swap places with my teammate Pokemon, I was able to push them all away from me. So that just made things flow a lot easier and more streamlined, and I just felt like it was a lot more quick and snappy. You wouldn't have to really pause the game anytime something would happen. Now, don't get me wrong, one time in the late game, this game did give me some trouble and my whole team wiped. It was really unfortunate because I was playing as a Charmander and I had an Execute, and there were a lot of fire and rock rock types around. So yeah, my team did wipe because I wasn't fully prepared in terms of bringing all the items that I needed to bring with me. And if your team does wipe, then you lose out on all of the items and the gold that you're bringing along with you. So it might be in your best interest to store the items that you want to save and the gold that you aren't spending at that moment in the banks. One of my big gripes when I did play the Game Boy Advance version of this game is that Pokemon cannot evolve until you beat the game, and I definitely feel the same this playthrough as well. I think it's silly that they don't allow you to evolve your Pokemon until you roll the credits on the game, because it's like, I don't really see the purpose of it. Now, you can recruit second or third evolutions of a Pokemon line, but you aren't able to evolve them on their own. So, for instance, I can recruit a Weedle, but not evolve it into a Beedrill, but I can recruit a Beedrill when I am playing through the game. And so it just doesn't make any sense to me. I just wish that it would kind of give you something extra to work towards when you're playing through a game, similar to like a main lane Pokemon game, where it is exciting that your Charmander is evolving into a Charmeleon or Charizard. But nope, you just have to wait until you completely beat the game, and I guess that's kind of the tone that they are going for when you're playing this game. It is very cutesy, and you're playing as the weaker Pokemon, kind of like an underdog story trying to overcome this danger. And I guess it is kind of nice that some of the first versions of these evolution lines are getting some more representation, because we all love Charizard and he's the strongest and the best, but you know what if we just play through a game as a Charmander? But I don't know, I definitely would have rather evolved if I had the option. So if you aren't playing through the main story of this game, I really do like the gameplay loop of this game, where you go out on a dungeon, you complete all of the corresponding missions that you acquired on the bulletin board in town, and then you turn them all in for a bunch of rewards and rank up your team. And ranking up your team basically gives you the option to hold more missions with you and to hold more items with you, and it just gives you bragging rights around the town. And when you are around the town, that's when you can purchase your goods, that's where you can store your items, that's where you can talk to NPCs, and that's where you can train at the dojo. And when you aren't leveling up your Pokemon and your rescue team rank, then you play through the main plot of the game. And the narrative and the plot, while I did say it was good, it also adds a certain level of humor, which I actually enjoyed. It's nothing like too hilarious, but at least it keeps things fresh and it keeps the narrative and the story going. The music itself is pretty good, with some really good bangers, especially the main town theme is nice with that fiddle. Not something that I would listen to on its own, but still something that keeps the game fun. Like I said, usually I listen to like a podcast or watched a video in the background while I was playing this game, so I didn't listen to the music that much, but the music is alright, it's pretty good. So overall, yes, I do think this is the superior version of the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team. They seem to have fixed a lot of the complaints that I had when I initially played the Game Boy Advance version of this game. However, I think the core gameplay is still quite repetitive and monotonous, and it wasn't exactly something that I was super excited to play. So it's not something that I can play in huge bursts of time. It just seems like I could sit down, play it for about half an hour, I'd get bored and have to move on to something else before I hop back to playing this game, just because the gameplay is so samey and repetitive. I just don't think the Mystery Dungeon genre is necessarily for me. However, this is probably the best version of this genre that I've played so far. So overall, if I was to give this game a score, I think I would give it a 3 out of 5, the exact same score that I gave the Game Boy Advance version of this game. However, I want to make it clear that this is the superior version of the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games that I have played so far. So if you have a Switch, definitely go the DX route over the Game Boy Advance and the DS version of this game. Well guys, that's it for me. Let me know if you have any questions or comments about Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team DX or the Pokemon series in general, and I'd love to hear what you have to say. Otherwise, I'll talk to you later. Bye!